The turning point wasn't the bed. It was the morning routine that proved it wasn't accidental. I walked into my best friend's kitchen in one of his shirts, half asleep, and he casually handed me coffee the exact way my boyfriend did. 2 sugars, no question. When I got home and tried to act normal, my boyfriend didn't argue. He just asked me to open my phone and show the last message I sent him last night. I hesitated because I knew what was there. Don't wait up. Then he showed me something I didn't know. He had my best friend's social story screenshot, posted at 4:06 a.m., with my laugh in the background and my name tagged as if I belonged there. My relax suddenly sounded like an insult. The sunlight streaming through Calen's bedroom window felt different than the gentle morning glow in my own home. Harsher, more accusatory. I blinked awake in his bed, wearing his oversized Stanford t-shirt, my club dress crumpled on his hardwood floor, like evidence I wasn't ready to acknowledge. "Morning, sunshine," Calen called from the kitchen, his voice carrying that familiar warmth that had gotten me into this mess. "Coffee's ready." I padded barefoot across his apartment, running my fingers through tangled hair. The whole place smelled like him, expensive cologne mixed with the faint scent of paint from his home studio. Everything about Calen's space screamed bachelor freedom, exposed brick walls, minimal furniture, not a single family photo in sight. "Here." He handed me a steaming mug, prepared exactly how I liked it. 2 sugars, splash of cream. The same way Owen made my coffee every morning for the past 8 years of marriage. My stomach twisted. "Thanks." "Sleep okay? You were pretty out of it when we got back." Calen leaned against his granite countertop, studying my face with those green eyes that had been trouble since we were teenagers. "You kept mumbling about Owen being controlling." Had I said that? The night felt fuzzy around the edges, softened by too many cocktails and the intoxicating feeling of being desired again. "I don't remember much after the 3rd round of shots." "You remember enough." His smile was knowing, predatory almost. "You said you needed this, to feel alive again." The coffee tasted bitter despite the sugar. "Calen, what exactly happened last night?" "Nothing you didn't want to happen." He moved closer, his hand brushing mine as he reached for his own mug. "You fell asleep watching Netflix. I gave you something comfortable to sleep in. That's it." But his eyes said otherwise, and the way he looked at me, like he owned a piece of me now, made my skin crawl with equal parts revulsion and excitement. My phone buzzed on his counter. Owen's name flashed on the screen. "Everything okay at home?" Owen's text read, simple, direct, no accusations. "Fine," I typed back, "heading home soon." Another buzz. "Drive safe. Love you." The guilt hit like a physical blow. Owen, who made my coffee every morning. Owen, who never questioned my girls' nights out. Owen, who trusted me completely. "I need to go." I started gathering my things, suddenly desperate to get back to my real life. "Already? It's barely 9. Calen caught my wrist. "Stay for breakfast. We could talk about last night properly." "There's nothing to talk about." But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. Something had shifted between us, some invisible line had been crossed, and we both knew it. "Lysandra." My name on his lips sounded different than when Owen said it. Dangerous. "You can't pretend this didn't happen." "Watch me." I grabbed my dress and purse, heading for his bathroom to change. In the mirror, I looked exactly like what I was. A married woman who'd spent the night in another man's bed. My makeup was smeared, my hair a mess, and worst of all, I was wearing his clothes, like some kind of claim. When I emerged fully dressed, Calen was scrolling through his phone. "Cute story I posted last night," he said casually. "You should check it out." My blood went cold. "What story?" He showed me his Instagram. There it was, a video from his apartment at 4:06 a.m., showing his living room with soft music playing, and clear as day, my laugh in the background. My name tagged in the corner like I belonged there. Delete that, now. Why? It's just us hanging out. But his grin was wicked. Unless you think Owen might get the wrong idea. Calen, I'm serious. Delete it. Relax, Lise. It's not like we did anything wrong, right? That word, relax. The same thing I'd told Owen last night when he'd expressed concern about my friendship with Calen. Now it felt like mockery. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. This was a mistake. Was it, though? His voice followed me into the hallway. Because you seemed pretty clear about what you wanted last night. I didn't look back. The drive home felt endless. Every red light gave me more time to think, to construct the story I'd tell Owen. Girls' night ran late. Calen offered his couch. Nothing happened. Simple, believable, mostly true. Our suburban duplex looked smaller than usual as I pulled into the driveway. Owen's car was gone, probably took Tessa to her Saturday morning soccer practice. Good, that gave me time to shower, change, get my story straight. But as I walked through our front door, I heard voices from the kitchen. Just saying, that girl has always been trouble. Judith, Owen's mother, was sitting at our breakfast table with a cup of tea, her silver hair perfectly styled, even at 9 in the morning. Mum, please. Owen's voice carried a weariness I'd never heard before. Where's Tessa? I asked, trying to sound normal. Upstairs, getting ready for practice. Owen didn't look at me. We need to talk. Judith's disapproving gaze swept over me. I should go. Call me later, Owen. She gathered her purse and coat, pausing at the door. Lysandra, dear, you might want to check your appearance before going out. You look disheveled. The front door closed behind her with a pointed click. Owen, I can explain. Can you? He finally looked at me, and something in his expression made my prepared explanations die in my throat. Because I've been sitting here for 2 hours trying to understand your text from last night. He held up his phone. Don't wait up. That's all you said. After 8 years of marriage, after I asked you to be careful around Calen, that's the consideration I get. It was just girls' night. Things ran late. What girls, Lysandra? His voice was quiet, controlled. Because I called your sister Clara this morning. She said you cancelled on her yesterday. My mouth went dry. And then there's this. He showed me his phone screen. Calen's Instagram story. My laugh. My name. The timestamp that proved I'd lied about where I was and who I was with. The coffee I'd drunk at Calen's apartment threatened to come back up. Owen, nothing happened. Nothing happened. He repeated my words like he was testing their taste. You spent the night at another man's apartment, lied to me about where you were going, and told me not to wait up, but nothing happened. I fell asleep on his couch. In his shirt. I looked down. I'd forgotten to change back into my dress completely. Calen's Stanford t-shirt peeked out from under my jacket. Owen, please, let me explain. I'm listening. But suddenly, I had nothing to say. Every explanation sounded like exactly what it was. A lie to cover up the truth. The truth that I'd been emotionally cheating with Calen for months. The truth that last night, I'd finally crossed a line I'd been dancing around for years. The truth that I'd betrayed the best man I'd ever known because I was bored and selfish and addicted to feeling wanted. It's not what it looks like, I finally whispered. Owen stood up slowly, his movements careful and deliberate. Then what is it, Lysandra? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like my wife spent the night with her best friend and lied to me about it. Tessa's footsteps thundered down the stairs. Daddy, I can't find my shin guards. Check the mudroom, sweetheart. Owen's voice immediately softened for our daughter. We need to leave in 5 minutes. She bounded into the kitchen, all energy and excitement, then stopped when she saw me. Mummy, you're wearing Uncle Calen's shirt, the one with the tree on it. The Stanford logo. She'd seen it enough times to recognize it. Owen's face went completely blank. Why don't you go find those shin guards? I managed. After Tessa left, the silence stretched between us like a chasm. "Uncle Calen's shirt," Owen repeated. "She knows his clothes well enough to recognize them." "Owen, how long?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "How long has this been going on?" "Nothing is going on." "Don't." He held up a hand. "Don't lie to me anymore. I can't take any more lies." I wanted to tell him everything, wanted to confess that I'd been unhappy, that I felt invisible in our marriage, that Calen made me feel young and desirable again. I wanted to explain that it wasn't about love, it was about feeling alive. But looking at Owen's devastated face, I realized how selfish and cruel those reasons sounded. "It was just last night," I said instead. "I made a mistake." "Found them." Tessa reappeared with her shin guards, oblivious to the tension crackling between her parents. "Great, let's go." Owen picked up his keys. "Lysandra, we'll finish this conversation when I get back." "Owen, wait." But he was already heading for the door with Tessa. "Come on, princess, don't want to be late." I watched through the window as they drove away, Owen's hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping him anchored. Tessa chattered excitedly in the back seat, completely unaware that her world was about to implode. My phone buzzed, a text from Calen. "Hope you made it home okay. Last night was fun. We should do it again soon." I stared at the message, realizing with growing horror that this was just the beginning. Calen thought he had some kind of claim on me now. Owen knew I'd lied and was putting the pieces together. And I was trapped in the middle of a mess entirely of my own making. I deleted Calen's message and headed upstairs to shower, trying to wash away the evidence of my betrayal. But as I stood under the hot water, I knew it was too late. The damage was done, and everyone was going to pay the price for my selfishness. Starting with the man who'd loved me unconditionally for 8 years and deserved so much better than what I'd become. By Monday morning, I'd convinced myself I could fix this. Owen had been coldly polite all weekend, sleeping in the guest room and speaking to me only when Tessa was around. But I knew my husband. He was a reasonable man, a forgiving man. He'd cool down, and we'd work through this like we always did. I was wrong about a lot of things, but I was especially wrong about that. "Lysandra, can I see you in my office?" My manager, Patricia, stood in the doorway of the HR department with an expression I couldn't read. I followed her down the hall, my heels clicking against the polished floor of Morrison & Associates. I'd worked here for 6 years, handling employee relations and benefits administration. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable, and I was good at it. Patricia closed the door behind us. "I received some concerning information this morning." My stomach dropped. "What kind of information?" "About your personal conduct." She sat behind her desk, her fingers steepled. "Specifically, about your relationship with a male friend and how it might be affecting your professional reputation." "I don't understand." "Ivy Tran called this morning. She works in marketing at Hendricks Corp., one of our biggest clients. She mentioned some concerns about your judgment and reliability." Ivy, Calen's on and off girlfriend for the past 2 years, the woman who'd never liked me, who'd always seen through my innocent friendship with her boyfriend. "Patricia, whatever Ivy told you, she said you've been having an affair with her boyfriend. She said you spent Friday night at his apartment and have been undermining their relationship for months." The words hit like physical blows. "That's not true. Calen and I are just friends." "Are you?" Patricia pulled out her phone, showing me Calen's Instagram story, the one I thought had been deleted. "Because this suggests otherwise." My face burned. "That's taken out of context. Lysandra, I don't care about your personal life, but when it starts affecting our business relationships, it becomes my problem. Ivy is threatening to recommend her company find new legal representation. She's just jealous. Maybe, but she's also a client and her accusations are serious." Patricia leaned back in her chair. "I'm not firing you, but I am putting you on notice. Keep your personal drama away from work, or we'll have to discuss your future here." I left her office feeling like I'd been slapped, Ivy had declared war, and she wasn't playing fair. My phone rang as I sat down at my desk. Clara, my sister. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "Not now, Clara. I'm at work." "Ivy called me this morning. She told me everything." My blood went cold. "What did she tell you?" "That you're sleeping with Calen, that you've been lying to Owen for months, that you spent Friday night at Calen's apartment." Clara's voice was tight with anger. "Please tell me she's lying." "It's complicated." "It's not complicated, Lysandra. It's simple. Are you cheating on your husband or not?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. I could lie, spin some story about misunderstandings and jealous ex-girlfriends, but Clara knew me too well. "Nothing physical happened," I said finally. "That's not what I asked." "Clara, you don't understand. Owen and I have been growing apart for years. He doesn't see me anymore, doesn't appreciate—" "Stop." Her voice was sharp. "Just stop. Don't you dare blame Owen for your choices." "I'm not blaming him." "Yes, you are. You're doing exactly what you always do when you screw up, making yourself the victim." Clara sighed heavily. "God, Lysandra, what were you thinking? Owen is a good man. He loves you. He's been nothing but devoted to you and Tessa." "You think I don't know that?" The words came out harsher than I intended. "You think I don't know what I'm risking? Then why are you doing it?" I couldn't answer that question, not honestly, because the honest answer was that I was selfish and bored and addicted to the thrill of being wanted by someone new, that I'd taken Owen's steady love for granted and convinced myself I deserved more excitement. "I made a mistake," I said instead. "One mistake, or a series of choices that led to Friday night." Another question I couldn't answer honestly. "Fix this, Lysandra. Whatever it takes, fix this before you lose everything that matters." She hung up, leaving me staring at my computer screen, unable to focus on work. Around me, my colleagues went about their normal routines, but I felt like everyone was watching me, judging me, seeing through my professional facade to the mess underneath. My phone buzzed. A text from Calen. "Drinks tonight? I think we should talk about us." Us. Like we were a couple. Like I wasn't married with a 6-year-old daughter and a life that was rapidly falling apart. I typed back, "There is no us. Please don't contact me anymore." His response came immediately. "Don't be like that. You know what we have is special." I stared at the message, realizing with growing horror that Calen thought Friday night was the beginning of something, not the end. He thought I was going to leave Owen for him, start some grand romance built on betrayal and lies. "I'm married," I texted back. "So? You weren't acting very married Friday night." The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. This was the man I'd risked everything for. This selfish, manipulative person who saw my marriage as an inconvenience rather than a sacred commitment. I turned off my phone and tried to focus on work, but my mind kept spinning. Ivy was spreading rumors. Patricia was watching me. Clara was disappointed. Owen was sleeping in the guest room, and Calen thought he owned me now. The afternoon dragged by in a haze of anxiety and regret. Every email felt like a potential landmine, every phone call like an accusation. When 5 o'clock finally came, I practically ran to my car. But my escape was short-lived. As I pulled into my driveway, I saw Owen's car already there. He was home early, which never happened. Owen was a project manager at a construction company, and his days usually stretched well into the evening. I found him in the kitchen, sitting at our breakfast table with a manila folder in front of him. Tessa was nowhere to be seen. "Where's Tessa?" I asked. "At my mother's. We need to talk without interruptions." The manila folder seemed to pulse with menace. "What's that?" "Sit down, Lysandra." I remained standing, suddenly afraid of what might be in that folder. "Owen, if this is about Friday night—" "It's about a lot more than Friday night." His voice was calm, controlled, nothing like the emotional man who'd confronted me Saturday morning. "Sit down." I sat. Owen opened the folder, revealing printed screenshots of text messages. My text messages with Calen, going back months. How did you... Your phone backs up to our shared iCloud account. Did you forget that? He spread the screenshots across the table like playing cards. Would you like me to read some of these out loud? My face burned as I saw my own words reflected back at me. Flirtatious messages, complaints about Owen, plans to meet up that I'd hidden from my husband. Owen, I can explain. Can you explain this one? He pointed to a message from 3 weeks ago. Owen's working late again. Sometimes I feel like I'm married to a ghost. I was just venting. Or this one. Another message from last month. You make me feel alive again. I'd forgotten what that felt like. Each word was a knife twist. Seeing my betrayal laid out in black and white, documented and time-stamped, made it impossible to deny or minimize. Or my personal favorite. Owen's voice remained steady, but I could see the pain in his eyes. I think about you when I'm with him. Is that terrible? Owen, please. Is it terrible, Lysandra? Because I'd like to know your thoughts on that. I couldn't speak, couldn't defend the indefensible. Here's what's going to happen, Owen continued, his tone businesslike. You're going to cut all contact with Calen. You're going to tell him that if he contacts you again, I'll file a harassment complaint. You're going to be completely transparent about where you are and who you're with at all times. Okay, I whispered. And you're going to move into the guest room while I decide whether this marriage can be saved. The words hit like a physical blow. Owen, no, please, I made a mistake, but we can work through this. A mistake? His calm facade finally cracked. Months of emotional cheating, lying to my face, spending the night at another man's apartment. That's not a mistake, Lysandra. That's a choice. A series of choices that showed me exactly how little you value our marriage. That's not true. Then explain it to me. Explain how a woman who values her marriage ends up in another man's bed, wearing his clothes, lying to her husband about where she spent the night. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Because there was no explanation that didn't make me sound selfish and cruel. I thought so. Owen gathered up the screenshots, sliding them back into the folder. I'm going to pick up Tessa. When I get back, I expect you to be in the guest room. Owen, wait. But he was already walking away, leaving me alone with the wreckage of my marriage and the growing realization that I might have destroyed the best thing in my life for a man who saw me as nothing more than a conquest. That night, lying alone in the guest room, I stared at the ceiling and tried to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. 3 days ago, I'd been a wife and mother with a stable life. Now I was sleeping in exile, my husband barely speaking to me, my sister disappointed in me, my job threatened by a vengeful ex-girlfriend, and the worst part, I had no one to blame but myself. My phone buzzed, another message from Calen. Heard you're having some trouble at home. My door's always open. I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it, because even in my lowest moment, even with my marriage hanging by a thread, I knew that running to Calen would be the final nail in the coffin of everything I'd built with Owen. But as I lay there in the dark, I couldn't shake the feeling that it might already be too late. Wednesday evening, I decided to take control of the narrative. If Ivy was going to spread rumors, I'd get ahead of them. I'd tell my side of the story to our mutual friends, frame the situation in a way that made me look like the victim of a jealous woman's vendetta. I arranged to meet my friend group at Rossetti's, the wine bar downtown, where we'd gathered every few weeks for the past 3 years. Sarah, Michelle, and Janet, women I'd known since college, who'd been bridesmaids at my wedding, who'd supported me through every challenge in my adult life. They were already seated when I arrived, their conversation stopping abruptly as I approached the table. Lysandra, Sarah said carefully, we weren't sure you'd come. Why wouldn't I come? I slid into the empty chair, signaling the waitress for a glass of wine. We do this every month. The 3 women exchanged glances. We heard about what happened with Calen, Michelle said finally. My carefully prepared speech died in my throat. What did you hear? Ivy posted about it on Facebook, Janet said, showing me her phone. She didn't name you specifically, but it was pretty obvious who she was talking about. I read the post with growing horror. It's amazing how some women will throw away their families for a man who doesn't even respect them. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Homewreckers never win in the end. Karma, and Troy know your worth. The post had dozens of likes and comments, including several from people I knew. She can't do this, I said. This is harassment. Is it true? Sarah asked quietly. Is what true? Did you sleep with Calen? The direct question caught me off guard. No. I mean, not exactly. I fell asleep at his apartment after we went out, but nothing happened. You fell asleep at his apartment, Michelle repeated, while you're married to Owen. It's not what it sounds like. What does it sound like, Lysandra? Janet's voice was sharp. Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you cheated on your husband. I didn't cheat. But even as I said it, I knew how hollow it sounded. Owen and I have been having problems. So you decided to work them out with another man? Sarah shook her head. God, Lysandra, what were you thinking? You don't understand. You're all single or divorced. You don't know what it's like to be married for 8 years, to feel invisible in your own life. The words came out wrong, defensive and accusatory. I watched my friends' faces close off, saw the moment I lost their sympathy. Actually, Michelle said coldly, I was married for 10 years before David died, and not once in that decade did I consider betraying him because I felt invisible. The reference to her late husband hit like a slap. Michelle had been widowed 2 years ago, and here I was complaining about feeling unappreciated while she'd give anything to have her husband back. Michelle, I didn't mean... What did you mean, Lysandra? Because it sounds like you're blaming Owen for your decision to cheat. I didn't cheat, I repeated, but the words felt increasingly meaningless. Then what do you call spending the night at another man's apartment? Janet demanded. A mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. This was a choice. Sarah leaned forward, her voice intense. Owen is a good man, Lysandra. He loves you. He's faithful to you. He's a wonderful father to Tessa. And you threw that away for what? A thrill? You don't know what my marriage is like. I know what Owen is like, Sarah interrupted. I've watched him worship you for 8 years. I've seen him light up every time you walk into a room, seen him brag about your accomplishments, seen him put you and Tessa before everything else in his life. And I've seen you take it for granted, Michelle added. Complain about him working too much, roll your eyes when he tries to be affectionate, flirt with other men right in front of him. That's not fair, isn't it? Janet pulled out her phone again. Because I have screenshots of your Instagram stories from the past few months. Want to see how many times you posted about girls' nights that apparently included Calen? My wine arrived, and I took a large gulp, buying time. You're all ganging up on me. We're trying to understand how you could do this to your family, Sarah said. Help us understand, Lysandra. Because right now, you look like a selfish woman who destroyed her marriage for a man who's probably going to dump you the second things get complicated. Calen cares about me. Calen is using you, Michelle interrupted. He's a 33-year-old bachelor who's never had a serious relationship. You think he wants to play stepfather to Tessa? You think he wants to deal with custody arrangements and alimony payments? It's not about Calen. Then what is it about? Janet demanded. I stared at my wine glass, trying to find words that would make them understand. But every explanation sounded selfish. Every justification rang hollow. I felt lonely, I said finally. So you talked to your husband about it? Sarah asked. He wouldn't understand. Did you try? It's complicated. No, it's not. Michelle's voice was flat. You were bored, so you decided to blow up your life. And now you want us to feel sorry for you. I want my friends to support me. Support you in what? Cheating on Owen, lying to your daughter, destroying your family? Janet shook her head. I can't do that, Lysandra. Neither can I, Sarah added. Owen's been like a brother to me since college. I'm not going to pretend what you did is okay. So you're choosing sides? You chose sides when you got into bed with another man, Michelle said bluntly. The conversation deteriorated from there. I tried to explain, to justify, to make them see that I wasn't the villain in this story. But everything I said only made them angrier, more disappointed. By the time I left Rossetti's, I'd lost 3 of my closest friends. I sat in my car in the parking lot, hands shaking as I called Clara. "How did it go?" she asked. "They hate me." "They don't hate you, they're disappointed. They're taking Owen's side." "There are no sides here, Lysandra. There's right and wrong, and what you did was wrong." "So you hate me too?" Clara sighed. "I love you, but I don't like you very much right now." The honesty of it cut deep. Everyone's abandoning me. You abandoned them first. You abandoned Owen. You abandoned Tessa. You abandoned your values. What did you expect? I expected my family to support me. Support you in what? Making the worst decision of your life? Clara's voice was tired. "Lysandra, I've been covering for you since we were kids. Making excuses for your selfishness, cleaning up your messes. But I can't do it anymore, not when it involves hurting Owen and Tessa. So you're cutting me off too. I'm telling you to grow up and fix this before it's too late." She hung up, leaving me alone in my car, with the growing realization that I'd burned every bridge in my life for a man who saw me as nothing more than a conquest. My phone buzzed. A text from Calen. "Heard you had drinks with the girls tonight. Hope you set them straight about us." Us. There was that word again. Like we were a team, like we were building something together instead of destroying everything I'd built with Owen. I didn't respond. Another text. "Don't let them get in your head. They're just jealous that you have the courage to go after what you want. The courage to go after what I wanted. As if destroying my marriage was brave instead of selfish. As if betraying Owen was admirable instead of cowardly." I drove home in silence, dreading what I'd find there. Owen's car was in the driveway, the house dark except for the glow of the television in the living room. I found him on the couch, still in his work clothes, staring at the screen without really watching. "How was your evening?" he asked without looking at me. "Fine." I sat down on the opposite end of the couch, leaving an ocean of space between us. "Good, because mine was interesting." Something in his tone made me look at him. "What do you mean?" "I had dinner with my lawyer." The words hit like ice water. "Your lawyer?" "Family law attorney. Came highly recommended." Owen finally looked at me, his expression unreadable. We discussed my options. "Owen, no, please. We can work through this." "Can we?" He muted the television. "Because I've been thinking about that, about whether this marriage can be saved. And I keep coming back to the same question. How long has this been going on?" "I told you Friday night was—" "I don't mean the physical part. I mean the emotional affair, the lying, the disrespect." His voice was calm, clinical. "How long have you been checked out of our marriage?" I couldn't answer that question honestly, because the truth was that I'd been taking Owen for granted for years, treating his love like an entitlement instead of a gift. "I made a mistake." "Stop saying that." His composure finally cracked. "A mistake is forgetting our anniversary. A mistake is snapping at you when I'm stressed. This isn't a mistake, Lysandra. This is a betrayal, a fundamental violation of everything we promised each other. Owen, please. I trusted you completely. Never questioned where you were going or who you were with. Never doubted your love or your commitment. And you used that trust to carry on an affair right under my nose. It wasn't an affair. What would you call it?" I opened my mouth, but no words came. "Because what did you call months of emotional intimacy with another man? What did you call sharing your marital problems with someone who wasn't your spouse? What did you call spending the night in another man's bed?" "I thought I knew you," Owen continued. "Thought I married a woman with integrity, with loyalty, with respect for her family. But the woman who's been lying to me for months, who spent Friday night with another man. I don't know who that is. I'm still me. Are you? Because the woman I married would never have done this. She would never have risked her daughter's security for a cheap thrill. She would never have humiliated her husband in front of their friends and family. Each word was a knife twist, all the more painful because they were true. What do you want from me? I whispered. I want my wife back, but I'm starting to think she never existed. He stood up, heading for the stairs. Owen, wait. I'm going to check on Tessa. You should get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. What happens tomorrow? He paused at the bottom of the stairs. Tomorrow we start figuring out how to tell our daughter that her parents are getting divorced. The words hit like a physical blow. Owen, no, please, don't do this to Tessa. I'm not doing this to Tessa. You did this to Tessa the moment you decided another man was more important than your family. He climbed the stairs, leaving me alone on the couch with the muted television and the growing realization that I'd destroyed everything that mattered for a man who didn't even love me. That night, lying in the guest room, I stared at the ceiling and tried to figure out how to fix the unfixable, but every solution required me to admit that I'd been wrong, that I'd been selfish, that I'd thrown away the best thing in my life for nothing. And I wasn't ready to face that truth yet. Thursday morning brought the confrontation I'd been dreading. I was getting coffee in the break room when I heard familiar voices in the hallway. Can't believe she had the nerve to show her face here. I heard she's been carrying on with that guy for months. Poor Owen, he seems like such a nice man. I stepped into the hallway to find 3 women from accounting huddled together, their conversation stopping abruptly when they saw me. Ladies, I said coolly, walking past them with my head held high. But their whispers followed me back to my desk, and I realized that Ivy's campaign against me had spread beyond our friend group. The entire office was talking about my personal life. My phone rang. Patricia again. My office, now. This time she wasn't alone. Jim Morrison, the senior partner, sat behind her desk while she stood by the window. Lysandra, we have a problem, Mr. Morrison said without preamble. Ivy Tran has filed a formal complaint against you with our HR department. What kind of complaint? She's alleging that you've been harassing her boyfriend and using your position here to intimidate her. He slid a folder across the desk. She's provided documentation. I opened the folder to find printed screenshots of text messages between Calen and me, including some I didn't remember sending. Messages that, taken out of context, could be interpreted as harassment or manipulation. These are private conversations that she obtained from her boyfriend's phone, Patricia said, which suggests he gave them to her willingly. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Calen had handed over our private messages to Ivy, letting her use them as ammunition against me. She's also threatening to go public with this information, Mr. Morrison continued. Social media, local news outlets, professional networks. She says she wants to expose what she calls a pattern of predatory behavior. Predatory behavior? My voice cracked. I'm not a predator. I'm the victim here. Are you? Patricia's voice was sharp. Because these messages paint a different picture. They show a married woman pursuing a relationship with another woman's boyfriend, using emotional manipulation to get what she wants. I stared at the screenshots, seeing my own words twisted into something ugly and calculating. Messages I'd thought were flirtatious now looked desperate. Complaints about Owen that I'd meant as venting now seemed like deliberate manipulation. This isn't what it looks like. It doesn't matter what it looks like to you, Mr. Morrison interrupted. It matters what it looks like to our clients. And right now, it looks like we employ someone with questionable judgment and ethics. So what are you saying? We're saying you have a choice, Patricia said. You can resign quietly, with a neutral reference and 2 weeks severance pay. Or we can terminate you for cause, which will make it very difficult for you to find another position in this field. The ultimatum hung in the air like a death sentence. You're firing me because of a personal relationship? We're firing you because your personal relationship is affecting our business, Mr. Morrison corrected. Ivy Tran's company represents 15% of our annual revenue. We can't afford to lose them over your poor choices. I wanted to fight, to argue, to demand fairness. But looking at their faces, I knew it was over. Ivy had won. I'll resign, I said quietly. Smart choice. Patricia handed me a resignation letter already prepared. Sign this, clean out your desk, and be gone by noon. I walked back to my desk in a daze, my colleagues' stares following me like accusations. 6 years of building my career, gone because of one night of poor judgment. As I packed my personal items into a cardboard box, my phone buzzed with a text from Calen. Heard about your job? That's rough. Want to grab lunch and talk about it? The casual tone, as if my life wasn't falling apart because of him, made me see red. I called him immediately. You gave Ivy our messages, I said without preamble. She found them on my phone. You let her find them. You wanted her to find them. Lysandra, calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. I just lost my job because of you. My marriage is over because of you. My friends won't speak to me because of you. That's not my fault. Isn't it? You pursued me for months, knowing I was married. You encouraged me to complain about Owen, to question my marriage. You made me feel like I was missing out on something. I never forced you to do anything. You manipulated me. You saw a woman who was feeling unappreciated, and you exploited that. You're being dramatic. Am I? Then why did you give Ivy those messages? Why are you throwing me under the bus to save your relationship with her? There was a long pause. Look, Lysandra, what we had was fun, but it's not worth destroying my life over. Ivy and I have been together for 2 years. You're married with a kid. This was never going to work long term. The casual dismissal of everything I'd risked for him took my breath away. So you're just going to pretend nothing happened? Nothing did happen. We're friends. We got a little too close, but that's it. I'm not leaving Ivy for you, if that's what you're thinking. I destroyed my marriage for you. You destroyed your marriage because you wanted to. Don't blame me for your choices. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, realizing that the man I'd thought cared about me had been using me all along. He'd enjoyed the attention, the ego boost of making a married woman fall for him, but he'd never had any intention of taking it seriously. I'd thrown away my marriage, my job, my friendships, for a man who saw me as nothing more than entertainment. I finished packing my desk and walked out of the office for the last time, my cardboard box of belongings feeling like a symbol of everything I'd lost. The drive home was a blur of tears and regret. I'd hit rock bottom, and there was no one to blame but myself. Owen's car was in the driveway when I arrived, another early day home. I found him in the kitchen, paperwork spread across the table. You're home early, he said without looking up. I resigned. That got his attention. What? Ivy filed a complaint against me. They gave me a choice, resign or be fired. I resigned. Owen's eyes softened for a second, then turned clinical again. He spread the papers across the table. Divorce, custody, finances, already documented like a case file. I begged for counseling, for time, for any way back. He cut through every excuse. It didn't stop because I chose our family. It stopped because he caught me. Trust was gone, and without it, there was no marriage. When I tried to hide behind Tessa needs both parents, he asked what kind of love we'd model if betrayal had no cost. That night we told Tessa. She cried in his arms, and I watched, realizing I'd broken her world for a fantasy. 3 weeks later, I was alone in a studio, seeing Tessa only on weekends, while Owen's airtight case turned my mistakes into a narrative